Welcome to another edition of the Clock End Talk preview pod, part of the Clock End Talk franchise. Excellent show yesterday. I don't know if you listened to that, Liam. Excellent show yesterday. The guys reviewed the Fulham game. Some weird predictions in there. I mentioned that. Liam, hello, welcome back.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, good to be back. Very good pod yesterday. Listened to it earlier today. Thanks for having me back.
An hour and 45 fucking minutes they did. How long can you do a podcast for? But it was quite good. It was very entertaining. I really recommend, if you haven't picked that one up yet, then pick it up. We've also joined this week by our West Ham fan. So I'm just looking now. We're just getting Max on as well. Max, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect. We're joined again by Max, who was on last week. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, Australia now. So well done, Max, getting up early. You still look like shit.
Mate's better than fucking 5 a.m.
And as I just was starting to say, we're also joined by our West Ham fan this week, who is somebody who's actually even older than I am. And you know how old I am. Welcome to the podcast, Neil.
That's the only reason you've invited me, I think, isn't it? So you can use that line.
It's becoming a good reason to invite you. I never really thought about it. Yeah. But now, yeah, Neil and me go back a long way. And as I said to him when I invited him on the podcast, he is the only football fan that can press my buttons and get me wound up. In fact, I think the last time I saw you, I walked out the pub. You wound me up.
You did,
so
yeah.
much.
But that wasn't about football, I don't think, was it?
I can't remember.
No, I can't either. We've had a few. We've been at football day and had a few, yeah.
Yeah, we had. Yeah. Me and Neil go back a long way. So he's a West Ham fan. Season ticket holder. And are you renewing, Neil?
No.
There you go. They've given up.
And I believe that only 30% have renewed.
Really? Yeah. It's that bad.
It's that bad.
Well, I mean, I guess that's my opening question. For those of you who don't know me very well, I'm from a town called Harlow, which is sort of on the outskirts of London. It was one of these new towns that was built in the 50s. Lots of people moved out from London, from East London, from North London. So, and the nearest or the easiest access to football is Tottenham. So, me and Neil have been brought up in a town where I would say that 90% of the supporters or 80% of the supporters are Tottenham Hotspur fans. And then there's quite a few West Ham and, quite a good few Arsenal as well. But it's mainly a Tottenham town.
So a smattering of Chelsea as well.
Yeah. There's a few. It's London clubs. And, of course, then you've got your Manchester United, your Liverpool fans who tend to live in the home counties like we do. But, Neil, let me ask you this. I was brought up in this town of Harlow with all these Spurs fans, and then in the early 80s, this club called West Ham United came into the ascendancy. You won the FA Cup, beating us when Trevor Brooking fell over and it hit him on the back of the head and went in.
Yeah, it should have been Tudo, Willie Young hacking down Paul Allen when he was clean through. Disgraceful behaviour.
No, it's past history now. Then we lost. Then Arsenal lost on the midweek after, or the following
lost
weekend.
In Brussels and lost at Wembley, as Jeff likes to sing. Yeah,
that's right. We lost to Valencia in the Cup Winners' Cup, and I got loads of shit from you West Ham fans. We were brought up listening to you bore us to tears with the fact that you won the World Cup, which for those of you that don't really understand that statement, West Ham United, when England won the World Cup in 1966. Many years ago, for their one and only time, they were joined. They had 3 West Ham players in the team, and all of the goals in the final, just the final, were scored by West Ham players. So we've had 40 years, 40 and the captain, yeah, 40 years of West Ham fans telling us they won the World Cup. We've been brought up with listening to West Ham fans say that they have the Academy of Football and all this beautiful style of play, and now. Your favourite with a lot of pundits to be relegated, your long ball specialists, a club in crisis, just avoided relegation last year. Where did it all go wrong?
I didn't know it had gone wrong. That seems sort of fairly standard fare with West Ham in recent years. And anyway, you make out that 1966 is so long ago that it's irrelevant. With this. Some of the most important dates in English history go back 1,000 years, Darren, 1066 and all that. So you've got to understand your history.
I guess a comment that you've said to me many times over the years, I can feel that there's a pot of straws and you are clutching at them.
Yeah, there's not a lot to clutch at the moment. Yeah.
No, seriously though, mate. And the West Ham are in a bit of a shambles at the moment with your club captain openly criticising the board. David Moyes sitting on the fence, not really coming out and saying anything either way. So selling one of your best young prospects, from what I understand, to a rival club club in the relegation stakes. How are you feeling going into this season?
I think the sale of Diangana was probably the sort of last straw for many people. I mean, I understand there were actually protests outside the ground the other night for the Charlton game. And just the various podcasts and things that I listen to from West Ham is that there's actually dissent and divisions within the board itself about what's going on at the moment. If Moyes desperately needs to sign defenders, and the only way of doing that is to sell a saleable asset. They want to sell Lanzini and Anderson, and there's no interest in them. So someone comes in with an offer for Diangana, and they're going to accept it because they need the funds to strengthen where they can strengthen. There's a lot of rumours going on about either takeovers or money from elsewhere coming in at the moment. And from what I understand, that it's not complete rubbish. Gold and Sullivan didn't buy West Ham because they were West Ham fans. They bought West Ham because they wanted to make a profit out of it in the long run, and eventually they're going to cash in on what the club has become. So I think that process is already starting.
How does that look if you get relegated?
I guess it looks pretty bad. Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm just going to shut my window. I can hear the aeroplanes. Max, you got anything to ask me? I've got a whole list of questions for him. But
Yeah, I do, Neil. The mighty West Ham youth system, which produced, I guess, the last great West Ham team. Joe Cole, Jermaine Defoe, Ferdinand, Carrick. All these players who we always said, West Ham was this great nursery of talent.
Yeah.
Is that dissipated? Are you not bringing them through? Are you not holding on to them? Have there been changes at that level for West Ham?
I think there's been changes at that level for all clubs. To a degree, the Chelsea academy has become so strong in attracting those type of players across all London clubs. West Ham absolutely back in the I think it was the 2002, 2003 team that got relegated that had a lot of those players that you just listed in the side. And if you can ever make an argument that a team was too good to get relegated, it was that team. Yes, clearly West Ham haven't been bringing through players, and we've gone into this mode, I think, in recent years where we tend to make we've made three of our three biggest ever signings can't make the team at the moment. Haller, Anderson, and Yarmolenko can't get in the team. They're not first choices. They made the second string team against Charlton on Tuesday night. So I think West Ham, in common with a lot of other clubs, don't have those academy players coming through. And I think the really irritating thing for West Ham fans at the moment is the fact that Diangana, who's one of the few academy players that have come through in recent years, at the first opportunity to sell him, that they've gone and sold him. And there's all sorts of rumours that Declan Rice goes. So what if the academy that West Ham have is to simply produce players for bigger and better, or clubs that have more opportunity for winning trophies? Where does that leave us? I mean, but I don't think West Ham are unique in that scenario.
Do you need to go down to re-establish to come back up? Do you think that's an element of?
No, I think we need a change of ownership.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to go down. I think the whole way that the club has been run in recent years since they took over has been to, let's say, bolster its value, because to take the inevitable profit that they're going to take from it. And sooner or later, as I don't know the full details of it, but sometime in 2023, the restrictions that they had on the sale of the club in conjunction with the Olympic Stadium, that the obligations that they have disappear at that stage, and therefore it becomes something that they can cash in for their benefit. I mean, I actually don't see anything that the owners of the club have done in recent years have been for the benefit of the club. That they you know, you only have to look at the way the club is financed. That Gold and Sullivan make loans to the club to cover its debt when they took it over from Claret and Blue Holdings. I think it was in 2011. They're receiving 7% interest on those loans to the club. It's a pension fund for their kids, effectively.
Can I just bring up, Neil? You mentioned that you're blaming the owners, and there's lots of clubs who are unhappy with their owners. A lot of Arsenal fans are unhappy with the foreign ownership of our club. But they did sign, 4 years ago now, they made the appointment of Manuel Pellegrini. Like I mentioned to you earlier, like a lot of the smaller clubs like Everton with Ancelotti, and with Leicester with Ranieri, and small clubs like Tottenham with Mourinho. They've all. Sorry, I just noticed got some Tottenham fans making some comments. You see, we've got some Tottenham fans listening, I think, and some West Ham. They did make that appointment of Pellegrini, which seemed like a really good move. It was an expensive move, I'm sure, and they, I don't know if they backed him in the transfer market, but he was a complete failure, was he not?
They certainly did back him in the transfer market. He made West Ham's 3 biggest signings. So yes, they certainly backed him. I might be a little out of line with most West Ham fans. I think that Moyes, during his first spell, if he'd been given time to do something, been given the backing of the board, we might be in a different place from where we are now. We've got a very dysfunctional squad. It's a very unbalanced squad. If we talk about the team we're going to play on Saturday, you could easily make an argument for West Ham playing 3 central defenders, but you couldn't do that on a long-term basis because we've only got 3 central defenders. So how can you plan a season around a system where you have no backup for injuries or anything? We have so many midfielders that play in the same positions that, theoretically, Darren Garner could have been 4th or 5th choice to play on a wide position. So we've got a very unbalanced squad, and I think that comes down to the decisions that the board have made over the years to run the club. And I think Moyes back in his first spell probably should have been given a chance to try and create something. He was given less than a season. Pellegrini, I guess at the time most of us were positive about that.
Squad-wise, it's not so removed from a team. Now, last season is a blur for me because it went so long that I aged a decade in a year. But it's not so far removed from a squad that whether it was early last season or the season before that, where Anderson absolutely bummed Arsenal in one of the games, absolutely took us to pieces. I think on the left wing for West Ham, and we were all screaming for Declan Rice at one point to be an Arsenal player as he ripped us apart as well. So I think sometimes we can get caught up in the idea that these things are so far lost. They're, unget backable, terrible word, 6 a.m, unget backable. But, I do look at that and I do wonder whether or not, if you look at Arsenal to make comparisons between the two teams, granted different ends of the table, but different starting points, I would say at the end of the Emery era into that Ljungberg era, we look like an absolute shambles of a team. We looked like we didn't understand our shape. We didn't know what was happening. The appointment of Mikel Arteta as a coach, even before the backing, completely changed. I would say within a handful of training sessions, even within just a handful of interviews of Arteta coming into the club, all of a sudden the club swelled up, the chest got pumped out. bang average players that we wanted out of the club, Mustafis, Xhakas, El Neni's coming in now, all of a sudden look like better players. And without being a David Moyes basher, because I think for so many people he's quite an easy target, I do wonder if the simple or the most logical answer here for West Ham is to just dump Moyes out the back door, bring someone in who's going to have a bit of a clean slate, a bit of gusto, maybe a bit more personality, and come in and just say, well, we've got to at least give it a crack, because if we don't, nothing's going to change. I've got you picked for relegation, and that hurts me, because as a football fan in his 30s, West Ham is almost like a pillar club for me. It's a club that when it's not in the Premier League, I prefer West Ham to be in the Premier League. It's one of those teams who it was there when I started watching football. So I do wonder if you know, in my long-winded way, just getting a manager change in there, getting a coach change in there, and getting someone fresh in there is the best way forward for West Ham now.
Neil, change of manager?
I don't think we need another change of manager. I don't think that. I think we need a change of direction, and the whole direction of the club is about Gold, Sullivan, Brady, and a money-making project. And
but which one's faster? A turnover of ownership. If we look at Newcastle,
I think it's quite interesting that in a sense that Souness at the weekend, I think, is a reasonable pundit. Says on paper West Ham are a top 7 squad. I mean, it's for discussion, but Souness says we're a top 7 squad. I don't think we're.
I think he was talking about the championship, though. Now,
prick.
But I think our squad is totally imbalanced. We are defensively inept, and as I say, we have 3 central defenders. And how do you go into a Premier League season with 3 central defenders and expect to come out with that with anything other than difficulty?
We have 9. You can have one of ours.
Would you like some of ours?
I suspect we may be looking around for loans fairly soon.
Liam, you had a question, I think, for Neil.
Yeah, it was kind of on this subject, I guess. We were talking a little bit pre-show, but my granddad's a big West Ham fan. And he kind of makes the point that it's just not the same sort of club it was pre sort of a stadium move, I guess, is probably around that time. He sort of feels it's gone from this proper sort of football club. And I guess it is about the money, where they've tried to emulate being an Arsenal almost, with the big stadium, trying to attract big names in Pellegrini, for example, and bring in use superstar a little bit lightly, but some superstar players. Is there anything more to it? Is there any kind of plan for footballing wise, or is it just a money making machine at this point, do you think?
I think I made the point at the time of the stadium move, because I know we talked about it, and I'm sitting in the pub tonight, and some of the people that I would have sat with would have said, it's about moving to the next level, and we can't move to the next level in a stadium that holds 35,000 people. If you believe that, then you have to go to a stadium that's going to hold 60,000 people, and you're going to be able to compete at a different level. But in reality, the fact that we've got a stadium that holds 60,000 people, and if we can generate the revenue on that stadium, which we can't because of the way the stadium is financed, i.e. we're council tenants, we can't generate revenue out of that stadium. The only thing that stadium guarantees is that we remain London's 4th biggest club, because we can't be anything else.
On a spiritual level, did that pull something out of West Ham, though, for these small London clubs, or smaller London clubs, who I guess are more family clubs and more local clubs? Do you think that moving to the bigger stadium kind of pulled a little bit of the soul out of West Ham, a little bit of the locality out of West Ham? Or do you think that's garbage that people talk about that?
I think at the time, I don't think it's unique to West Ham what's happened with the stadium. I think every club that's gone, and Arsenal's no different, I guess, is that you attract a different audience. And that audience is very different. I often say I don't like modern football supporters. Their needs and expectations of when they sit in a stadium are very, very different from what I used to go to back in the late 70s and early 80s, where you wouldn't abuse the players while they were playing the game. They got lots of abuse at the end of the game if they didn't play very well, but you would never boo your team on the pitch. It takes 10 minutes for West Ham fans to get on the team's back at the new stadium, and I just think that's the modern audience of football, and I don't think that's unique to West Ham. I think that's everywhere.
Liam?
Yeah, so do you think there's any kind of way you can kind of keep the soul that may have moved on, given the stadium move, but still look to compete with the likes of the Arsenals and the Tottenhams, for example? Is there any way of having that best of both worlds?
I don't think, but I think the soul of football clubs has changed anyway. I don't think it's unique to West Ham. I think that's happened at Arsenal, and that will happen at Spurs. It will happen at Chelsea. Well, I went to a corporate invitation at Chelsea and Spurs back in February. West Ham gets criticised for its atmosphere. It wasn't great. A London derby between Arsenal and Spurs. It's a different audience. It's a modern audience that goes to football now, and I don't think that's a uniquely West Ham thing. That's just something we all.
I know a lot of season ticket holders at the Arsenal, and they would say, people sat next to people at Highbury for a very long time, and when the new stadium came and the allocations changed, it moved people around into different areas. I know.
That was a huge problem at the new stadium.
Yeah, we've got a group of lads at Arsenal, young lads who are pushing this. They want safe standing. They want singing areas. They want to be able to separate out the corporates from the diehard fans, from the old-fashioned fans. They want it reallocated. So if you want to stand there and you want to stand up for the entire game, then you can go and sit and block whatever. If you want to be a corporate and sit there and drink your Chablis and eat your prawn sandwich, you can go sit there. I think that's where stadiums need to start getting a bit more fluid and a bit more intelligent.
I agree with that entirely. I think at West Ham we look at the lower tier and the upper tier. We sit in the first few rows of the upper tier, and I personally I would prefer to stand, but I think it would be impossible to stand in that section. But I can't see any reason at all why the section in front of us can't be a standing section. It would make sense for that to be a standing section, and it would improve the atmosphere of the ground. Part of the problem when we first moved to the stadium was that the stewards made a point of making people sit down and created quite a lot of friction within the ground. It was quite unpleasant at times, isn't it?
I think this is a major problem that we've got with football. I mean, this is a general problem. I mean, thanks for bringing it up, Max. But I've been always in favour of standing at football matches. I think it generates an atmosphere that you get that you don't get when everyone is sitting down. But unfortunately, the reason that we've got all-seater stadiums was because of Hillsborough. And much as that was a disaster, horrible day. I was on the terraces in the clock end at Arsenal the day of the Hillsborough disaster. We were playing Newcastle, I think. And they made and football supporters were animals and were treated like animals. Changing it to all-seater stadiums was an excellent way forward because it removed a core element of what was wrong with football in those days. However, every time they bring up safe standing, Hillsborough is mentioned again. Football has moved on so much now. All games are all ticket. I mean, that instantly stops opposition supporters infiltrating a home end. Instantly.
Not to mention, stands aren't made of wood.
Yeah, stands aren't made of wood. But I thought Arsenal really missed a trick when we built the Emirates Stadium because we didn't accommodate it for any even future use for standing. The cost now to make Arsenal a safe standing stadium is extortionate. And can we actually do that? We're going through this COVID crisis. There's not a lot of money about at the moment. We're making redundancies as a club, and yet we're so far away from what football was. And what football was, it wasn't always brilliant, it wasn't always pretty, but it was enough good fun to go and watch. When I go and watch football now, it's all about the day out. It's about the pub beforehand and the pub after the game. And the game actually becomes like a bit of an inconvenience in the middle sometimes. I mean, I was going to ask you, Neil, you're going to the Emirates Stadium, obviously not personally. Your team is going to the Emirates Stadium on Saturday. There's going to be no crowd. Do you think you'll notice the difference? Because it's quite a quiet stadium at the best of times.
You could say that about ours as well.
I've been to yours. I was there last year at your guest. You
Well,
got
no.
beat 5-1 by Manchester City on the opening day of the season.
and you particularly enjoyed it. I remember, Darren.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was. You were sitting miles away from the pitch where we were sitting. We're miles away from the pitch. The beer dispensers weren't working at half time. We got kicked out 15 minutes after the end of the game. It was not. There was one pub on the way in.
But Darren, what you're talking about here is what is so wrong about the stadium is the match day experience. The fact that West Ham don't own the stadium, they can't control the match day experience. So the people that do own the stadium are under financial pressure because the only income they have got is from West Ham. Effectively, we're doing the taxpayer a favour. I know nobody agrees with me on that, but without West Ham there, the taxpayer would be paying far more towards it. But to make the stadium work, they need to invest in the match day experience for the person that goes there, and they don't. They're just cutting costs on everything. So the fact that they're not selling enough beer at half time means they put the price of the beer up and they reduce the number of staff serving it because they're trying to reduce their costs. So they sell even less beer. It's the bad coffee shop mentality, and that's West Ham Stadium experience all over.
We've been going through this in Australia in rugby league for 10 years, where we have lost the experience of going because it's harder, it's more expensive. It was a blue collar game, and now all the prices have gone up, and it's become, like I said, more prawn sandwich brigade. Yeah. And they're starting to bring this thing in here now where they're talking about lowering the prices of beer. So they can't get the tickets lower. So now the government's talking about actually subsidising the food and booze at the game. We're starting to bring in pre-game entertainment, half-game entertainment, post-game entertainment to try and make the whole experience better.
Outside of the stadium, the approach up to the stadium, it's a
drums
20-minute walk from the stadium. Kids
atmosphere,
kicking, having penalty shootouts and stuff like that. Make it a reason to spend some time at the stadium.
I think
instead
the game
of arriving
of Premier
there as late
League
as possible
has become so corporatized now, and the football has become so corporatized that the soul of football is being aborted out of it at every given opportunity. Yeah. I mean, even at Arsenal, we were trying to get a drum in, just a drum, so that we could develop some atmosphere. And all the corporates said, we don't want to hear banging the entire game.
Do you think, I mean, it's interesting now with this global pandemic, which is costing us all in many, many ways. Do you think that because the income stream for most Premier League clubs has changed, because, before the huge TV rights, it was very important to get bums on seats in stadiums. It was important. That was the main revenue. Arsenal moved to a 60,000-seater stadium because we needed, as it was quoted at the time, we need to compete with the Real Madrid, the Barcelonas of this world. However, now, with the huge money that's coming in from TV, that is in some cases quite a minor part of the revenue stream. Do you think now with COVID and the TV companies aren't going to be offering so much, people are getting dodgy streams everywhere to watch their football, the money coming in from television probably won't be as much in years to come. The last deal was a lot less than the previous one. Do you think that it will become essential for clubs now to actually start looking after us fans again? Do you think it will become a priority, and like Tottenham have done in their stadium? Max?
Absolutely, and it should. I think that naturally, as time is moving on, socially, even if we look at the place that the local pub used to have in society, it was a place to come together as a local community. As football becomes more globalized and all of the teams become more globalized, and people don't live necessarily in the areas where the football club is anymore, there's an element of loss of connection in football. And as we give up more of that loss of connection and the TV experience becomes bigger, and as you said, the streaming experience, you can go and get a hacky stream from wherever you want. Even when I was living in London last, I was amazed at how difficult it was to watch a game of football. In Australia, you're like, I'll just turn on my local stream and I've got every single game of football. I've got the pre-game, I've got the match minis. It didn't exist like that. So if ever now there was a time to start investing back into the community and investing back into society and the tribalism of football, absolutely. I mean, we've come a cropper on the whole stadium thing. We blew however long, a decade paying off the stadium. And by the time we'd paid off this asset that was meant to deliver us money, the commercial money, the TV money had outweighed what the actual stadium provided us so much. that ended up being an investment in futility, and all of the Premier League just caught up with us within one major $1 billion TV deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to start finding ways of getting people to engage with the football club, as in the locality of the football club, the match day experience of the football club, and whether that's, I heard a really good podcast. Someone was talking about putting the under 21s on. So essentially mirroring the games and putting the under 21s on before the football started. So literally the game before. So you actually get people coming to the ground, engaging with the youth team, understanding what's coming through the academies, watching a game of football before the major game of football actually starts, and getting people out for 3 or 4 hours. Because what does that do? It gets them eating lunch, it gets them eating dinner, it gets them into the area.
Oh, come on, Neil. Let's be fair. If you're trying to do that with you bringing your kids to football, that's like a reason to call Childline, making them have 4 hours of West Ham.
I used to take my daughter, who's 21 now, and I took her when she was about 9 or 10, and she was really keen on West Ham, and I sort of pointed out that it is a lifetime of misery and disappointment with West Ham, that we'll never win anything. We haven't won anything since 1980. But that's football, isn't it? You don't become a West Ham fan because you want to boast about the trophies you won, even though we've won the World Cup.
What do you make of Arsenal fans, Neil? We talk often long and hard about this, but what do you make of Arsenal fans? Because in that 40 years that you're talking about, since West Ham last won a trophy, we've won the league, I don't know, 5, 6 times. We've won 7, 8 FA Cups. We've been in Europe. We've won European competitions. We've got a great new stadium. And yet our supporters seem to complain about everything constantly. What's your view as an outsider to the Arsenal family, you think, on Arsenal fans?
I think you're really fortunate not to be Spurs fans. What have they won? Come on. They've got their new stadium and they've done this, that and the other and won bugger all. No, I mean, I think if you think about what football fans actually are, and yeah, okay, you're Arsenal fans, you have an expectation that you start the season that you're going to win a trophy. But, our friend John, he goes along and watches Harlow Town. Yeah. Millions of people every week go and watch lower league teams. They don't go there in the expectation that they're watching someone who's going to win a trophy. They're going there for the love of football and the love of the experience and the day out. So that's what football is, and it's a bit of what we were talking about before, the match day experience. I'm not going to West Ham because I'm expecting us to do anything this season. Our expectations for this season aren't great. I would go to West Ham because I want a good day out with my friends, and at the end of it, to be able to go and have a few pints and talk about what we've experienced for that day, and look forward to doing it again the next week. And I think, unfortunately, with the new stadium, because of the method of the ownership and the way that it is financed and it is run, the person actually having the match day experience is almost irrelevant. And that's the biggest fault at West Ham.
That is true. Neil, I'm going to wrap up this West Ham section because
absolutely. There's loads to go on to. Yeah.
Just a couple of things, a couple of questions to finish. What are your expectations this season as a West Ham fan? Where would you be? Where do you think you're going to finish?
If you look at who would finish below us, you would say West Brom and Fulham are going to have a tough season. I think Leeds will stay up. I think after watching them the other day, they're going to have a go at enough teams to score enough goals to stay up. Who is going to have a tough season other than West Ham? I think Burnley might have a tough season because of the problems that they've had. Brighton, I'm not sure Sheffield United will be anything like they were. So I think we're in that mix of teams where you're saying who's going to finish below us. And I was listening to quite a gloomy podcast earlier on today from some West Ham supporters that I respect, who were saying they can't see 3 teams below us. I can see 3 teams below us, but I think it's going to be a tough season.
And looking forward to Saturday evening. You're going to the Emirates. You're playing an Arsenal team that's has just beaten the team that's probably going to come bottom 3-0. But the feeling amongst the club and the feeling amongst Arsenal fans is better than it's been for I would say, for 5 years, 6 years. Give us a prediction for the game.
Well, I would say if you look at last season's league table, you're our lowest ranked opponents in the next 6. You're our best chance of points in the next 6 games. And I'll have to be honest, I'm not sure we're going to get anything out of Saturday. You can make a case that West Ham could get to November and still have no points with the start that we've got.
I did quote that.
Having said that, though, Darren, I think it's quite interesting that the post-lockdown thing. We started very badly post-lockdown. We had bad result against Wolves. We played badly against Spurs, and we went into that Chelsea game needing something, and we played really well, and we got something. And West Ham in recent seasons have managed to do that now and again, have actually managed to produce a performance that is above them. So every now and again, we'll beat Spurs. We had a great game against Liverpool post-lockdown. We drew at Man United. West Ham have it in them. There's some decent players there. And so I think it's easy to make the case for us getting a beating on Saturday. I'm going to have a little bet on West Ham winning because I think I might get 8 or 9 to 1 on us winning.
All right. Look, Neil, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed your company, as always. And we'll let you get back to those noisy people at the bar.
Okay, good stuff. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure, Neil. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Neil.
That was Neil Jackson. I don't know where you can find him. I forgot to ask him. I don't know if he's actually very active on Twitter, but thanks to Neil for joining us today.
Got deep there, didn't it? Spiritual.
Yeah, Fulham fan last week was just wrote off West Ham. This one was wrote off Fulham. This one was getting even worse.
Yeah.
Felt like I had to put him out of his misery in the end. So, guys, look, we won't talk too much about last week. This is a preview looking forward to West Ham at the weekend, but full of positivity from last weekend. Liam, are you looking forward to the game on Saturday evening?
Yeah, I'm not usually confident ahead of a game, but I think that's part and parcel of just being an Arsenal fan, isn't it? I'm quietly confident. I'm as confident as I usually can be, I guess. So
I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, now we're top of the table. We haven't mentioned that yet. We're top of the table. Anyone listening, we're top of the league. So I was looking ahead at the fixtures at the weekend. I don't watch, Matt. I don't know, Max, Liam, I'm not sure if you're the same. I don't watch a lot of football. I watch Arsenal. You know, I really watch Arsenal.
Barely anything for me.
Yeah, I can't stand watching teams unless I really have an interest in it. You know, we need someone to win or need someone to lose. Looking ahead at the weekend's fixtures, Liam, any particular game you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I did have a quick look. I mean, I think Chelsea-Liverpool's the obvious one, just to sort of see how Chelsea actually do against a good side. But I thought Villa versus Sheffield United might be quite a good one too. I think Villa
will goalkeeper.
Yeah, they have, haven't they? No, I think they'll do better this season, Villa, and I'm not sure Sheffield United will quite do as well. So I think that could be quite a good close game.
Yeah. Max, anything you're going to drag yourself in front of a TV for?
Like you, Darren, I find myself as I get older, I watch less and less football and more Arsenal. And then I guess I listen to more podcasts and read more articles and things like that, you know, more immersed in the Arsenal. For me, it's often if I'm watching a football team, it might be because I'm particularly interested in a player or seeing how a player goes to the club, or particularly interested, especially early in the season, of teams who I think are going to be around us. Like I'm quite interested to watch a couple of Everton games and see if this, because I think they've done good business in this window. I'm interested to see if they're going to challenge us. You know, as stupid as it sounds, I'm always interested in watching Spurs early on in the season because I want to see if they're shit. I want to see if Mourinho's going to, you know, blow them up to you know, just destroy them, which we all hope they're going to. So, I mean, direct games, look, I picked Chelsea to be quite good. It's funny, you know, often if there's like a Man City-Liverpool game, everyone's like, I'll switch that on. And I'm usually like, why would I want to watch them? It's just going to fucking depress me. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm quite looking forward to the Tottenham game. You know, that's the only one I think I'll watch, is because they're away at Southampton and they're shit. So I'm really hoping that they'll lose. I can watch that one. Max, you've just got up. I don't know if you saw that Spurs smashed their way through into the next round of the Europa League. Have you seen that yet, Max, this morning?
I did, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, 2-1 with two goals in the last 10 minutes against 9 men. Plovdiv.
Yeah. What a
Mourinho's
shit
doing
club.
his stuff, and he only made 4 changes from the team that played at the weekend. So they're. I'm really enjoying Tottenham at the moment. They're going to play. They're playing 3 times next week.
Well, I didn't put them in my top 6.
No, me neither.
You know, I think
No,
they
not me.
actually might be a club without just being an anti-Spurs for the sake of being anti-Spurs, because they're shit and we know they're shit. I cannot see them having a good season this year. You know, Harry Kane's another year older. You know, coming off an average season, granted injury and all that. They've got a manager who I don't think suits the type of trajectory where the club is now. I've always said that Mourinho is a manager who probably needs to take over a great squad who needs a little bit of additional winning mentality, and he can get them the extra 2% or 3% that they need. Well, Spurs need 30%. Mourinho's not the man to do that. So, I'm always interested in watching Spurs burn, but I don't think they'll...
How do you guys feel? I mean, I'm really serious. I think we're more excited now than, with Arteta and the way the things have shaped up. As you said, in a matter of a few training sessions, he's made a lot of players that were performing quite ordinary, quite extraordinary in a really short space of time. When we appointed Arteta, which is only, months ago, what was it, Christmas? It's 10 months ago, I guess. There was a lot of talk at the time that we were going to go in for Jose Mourinho. It was mentioned quite a lot that we would get Jose. And when you look at Tottenham now and the negativity surrounding that club, and I did watch their game at the last weekend against Everton, more to watch Everton than to watch Spurs, or more to watch Everton win than to watch Spurs. You look at the faces of the players. Nobody seemed to be enjoying it playing at Tottenham. How do you think it would be if we had Mourinho in charge of us now? Liam?
I don't even want to think about it. I'm going to admit this. I was on the fence about whether I wanted Mourinho, and I kind of actually leaned towards wanting him at a stage. That's how desperate things got, I guess, under Emery. But fuck me, I'm so glad we didn't. I could not. I mean, it was bad under Emery, but under Mourinho, it's a whole nother level. I think it would be.
Yeah. I mean, Max, I went on record as saying that if Mourinho took over at Arsenal, I would absolutely stop watching us. And I've been watching since I was a kid. I was going to stop. To me, it's like fate, karma, as Stephen King would say, quartet. This is the man I hate most in football, managing the team I hate most in football. So it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling for me that the two are married together. And long may that marriage last.
Yeah,
but he could have been our manager.
It was beautiful when he did take over at Tottenham, because I guess it re-instilled Arsenal fans' ability to hate Tottenham even a little bit more. It was like, what can you do to this club to make me dislike you more? Well, you can go and hire Mourinho. Yeah. And Liam, you're not alone. I think a lot of people at that stage, I mean, I definitely wasn't one of them. I said that I would genuinely struggle to watch Arsenal with Mourinho on the sideline. And that's a huge thing for, an Arsenal fan who does, 3 podcasts per week, to say, I would actually struggle to watch my own team with this particular manager. But so desperate was the time, and such was the need to put some spine into our team, and that understanding, or that we've for so long spoken about being disorganized at the back and unable to defend, and Mourinho would be that guy who historically has come in and made teams solid. But mate, looking back on it, thank God we didn't get him in. And I'm not going to be one of the guys to sit here and put my hand up and say I was pro Arteta. I wasn't pro Arteta. I wanted experience. I wanted either Ancelotti, or I wanted Rafa Benitez, or someone like that. And all credit to Arteta. It's a previous show, but if we look back to the Fulham game, our shape under Arteta compared to our shape under Emery, wildly different. And I'll still argue that Emery had a better squad with better players than still what Arteta has. So another couple of signings, what's he going to do with a better team and a group of a cohort of players who actually suits the way he wants to play?
Absolutely. Big news this week. I think we should really just spend a couple of minutes talking about the biggest signing that we've made in this transfer window, and that's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang signing a 3-year contract. Liam, it's it's been Arteta's been saying it's going to happen for months, and we sort of all believed him because Arteta's God now, and what he says goes. But how happy are you?
I mean, you can't almost rate it, can you? I mean, it's obviously just beyond delighted. I mean, I've seen there's still those negative Nancy's on Twitter that go, "Oh, he's earning more than us," or for what? But I can't be arsed with the money side of it. I love the guy. I love watching him play. I'm enjoying watching him score goals. Screw the money. That's not my problem. I can't wait to keep seeing more of him, to be honest.
Yeah, good point, Max. I listened to a non-Arsenal podcast today, a general football podcast, and a journalist from the Times said that it's a terrible signing because it seems good in the short term, but he's 31 and he is going to turn into Ozil in 12 to 18 months' time. For me, he looks a little bit like Kana in the fact you don't know whether he's 25 or 55. Aubameyang, he's one of those that African status where you just, I'm sure he could be fit forever.
Look, sports science has come a long way. I think the style of player he is, that he pulses in and out of games, and this comes back to my argument about not playing him at centre forward that I make constantly, because centre forward's where all the hard work and all the running and getting bashed up by centre backs is. And out wide, he can sort of hum on a couple of thousand revs, and as he wants to, he turns it up to 5,000. He makes a run, he darts in, and he scores a goal. It's taking load off him. He doesn't have a great injury record, as in he doesn't get injured a lot. And I think that really it's now up to the club to define whether or not this is a good signing or not. Because this is a good signing, provided the next transfer window gives us the midfielders that allow him to achieve, and he doesn't end up having to be some kind of a maverick carrying the team on his back and scoring every week. If we can put the right players around him, 250 grand and another 100 grand of bonuses, I don't give a fuck. But if we go and pay him that money and we don't do anything and he still has Xhaka and El Neni behind him, it's going to end up being a waste of money. It's now time for the Arsenal board to say, got our man, got our totem that we can buy people around, that we can entice players with. Do you want to come play with Aubameyang? Now let's go get a couple of players. Let's feed him, and let's make sure that 25 goals that he scores is 25 goals getting us into the Champions League, not 25 goals getting us into the Europa League.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we should touch on as well the sale of Emi Martinez. He's no longer an Arsenal player, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But really, just to say thank you in his short Arsenal career as number one. He's become a small legend, doesn't he? Post lockdown, we're all depressed. We're mid-table. We're having a terrible season. We've had a terrible manager for the first half of the season. It's all gone wrong, and yet after lockdown, the injury to Bernd Leno gave Emi Martinez a chance to come in and become a hero, and he won the FA Cup. And I just want to say thanks to Emi Martinez for his service to the club. 10 years.
Yeah, echo that completely. I mean, it's a shame to see him go, isn't it? But it's also one of those understandable ones from all three sides, and he's been a gooner for a long time now. So thank him for his service, and I hope he does quite well at Villa, apart from 2 games of the season, of course.
Yeah, and apart from
needs must. Saleable assets. Yeah, saleable assets.
I was just going to say that, Max. It's one of those that it's a free chunk of money for us, isn't it? It's a free chunk of money. Obviously we've paid his wages and we've educated him for the last 10 years, but it's free money.
Not a bad keeper in our number one anyway, Bernd Leno, kind of the forgotten man as everyone waxes lyrical and strokes themselves for Martinez every week. We have a very, very, very good German.
Yeah, it's a good point. Just coming from Dave Atkinson on YouTube, who said Vardy is 2 years older than Aubameyang and he's just won the Golden Boot. Excellent comment. Really, really apt. The other one, the only other transfer, because I don't like these podcasts to go on too long. I think there's a good time limit for these. But before we just go into the detail of the game against West Ham on Saturday, there's a lot of talk over the last 48 hours that Gareth Bale is going to rejoin Tottenham Hotspur. Any feelings on that, Liam?
It's such a Mourinho signing, isn't it? Because he loves getting his teams behind the ball, and then he just gets that player who just knows how to attack and goes, do your thing. It's what he did it with Sanchez at Man United. I think he did it at Chelsea when he could have used Lukaku and ended up buying Samuel Eto'o. I can see why they're doing it, but I can't see it working from a football's perspective. And I really hope it fails.
Max?
Look, I hope the wages they have to pay him stop them from buying a player that they actually need. He's fairly busted. He hasn't got a great injury record. I'm sure he'll come in and do what Gareth Bale does. He's a quality footballer. I'm sure he'll still score quality goals for them, but I'm also sure based on his current injury record, you get 20 games a year out of him. They're going to have to pay him a fucking fortune.
I think
well.
the figure is 15 to 20 million pounds this year. It will cost him for a 1 year loan deal, just in wages.
Yeah.
It seems a lot when there's no future. But as Liam said, that's a Mourinho signing, isn't it? Let's just do something now. Fuck the club. Fuck the long-term future. Fuck getting youngsters in. Let's just win a trophy.
Yeah. Look, I've got a couple of Spuds fans, and they think it's a spiritual signing for the club. That's the way they're justifying it. That bringing Bale back will give all the players in the team a lift, and when those players are up and elevated, they believe that they're a top 4 club. So we'll see. I think it'll end up being money poorly spent by Tottenham. The manager's shit, the club's shit, so fuck them.
Couldn't agree more.
Don't mince your words. So West Ham Saturday, we all predicted our team against Fulham, and I don't think we got too much right or too much wrong. There's some obvious ones. I think after seeing that game, it becomes a little clearer, does it not? Let's have a look. Well, obviously now the goalkeeper situation is quite straightforward. Hopefully, Leno's going to be injury free for the next 5 years, and it was good to see him back, wasn't it? And good to see him having a good game. So are we going to stick with that same defence, or do you see any changes, Max?
Look, I would. This is the issue I always find with doing a preview pod anyway. Pretty much the team went out and it played well. I would expect to see the same team.
Yeah.
So I'd expect to see the same thing pretty much across the board, injuries withstanding and whatnot. I think that's pretty done and dusted. But I was wrong about so many things in my prediction last week. So my credibility is waning with each.
Well, I guess that's
podcast.
what I thought, because the options in the back, they played quite well. Saliba looked very good, so I think he'll retain. Not Saliba, sorry. I just saw a question.
Gabby,
Sorry, just because I saw a question come in from Johnny Max. Do you think we're going to see Saliba feature? I mean, I think the noises coming from the club are that he's not quite ready. He didn't play a lot of football last year. He's 3 years younger than Gabriel. Or 2 years younger than Gabriel. He's not quite. They're not quite ready to put him
in the cups. I think in those early rounds of Europa League for me.
Yeah. Is David? Any news on David Luiz? Is he going to be fit?
6 weeks. 6 weeks. I heard the last
Wow.
thing.
Okay.
I heard he was back in training, according to George Bird on Twitter.
Who knows? Last week in the preview, I said, I heard a thing saying it wasn't as serious and he could line up. And then I read, it's quite serious. It's 6 weeks and it's a neck sprain. So,
Okay, so I guess we're all fairly confident. Holding played quite well. Tierney looks... I just wanted to touch on that. I thought the way that we've got... Mikel Arteta, I wasn't, over enamoured with the signing of Arteta to manage our club, but his work, it's like he's playing Football Manager, a Championship manager. He's got 3 good people left backs, so he's playing them all somehow. He's got Tierney playing on the left side of the 3. But he's got Maitland-Niles, who's given some weird instructions, and I didn't think they worked for the first 10, 15 minutes last week. But the more you watch the game, the more you could see that he actually had a role and he was doing exactly what he was told. And as he went forward, Tierney sort of went forward. Xhaka dropped in that place. And suddenly, we just looked dynamite down that side. Lots of energy. So I can't see him making too many changes to that. I guess the other question really is, Liam, is Ceballos going to take over from El Neni?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it earlier, and I think there'll be maybe 2 changes. One, Ceballos for El Neni. I think maybe Saka comes in for Maitland-Niles, just against, at home against a team that's going to sit back, I would expect anyway. Maybe. But Ceballos for El Neni, otherwise it'll be virtually the same side.
Yeah, obviously we all... Sorry, is that my phone going? We all got the team wrong last week, but I think you mentioned it on your podcast, your preview pod that I listened to today, Max, your Ask Bros podcast today with your brother. Blimey, you two sound the same. Really good podcast, but I can't tell. I wanted to say, I want to pick Max up on that tonight, and then I couldn't tell if it was you or your brother. So,
Yeah, someone watched it and said it looked and sounded like because Toby's grown his hair out now, so he's grown his hair out and his beard out, and they said it was like a pre-lockdown Max and a post-lockdown Max.
I love it. But I think it was in that podcast I listened to a lot today. It was a day of listening to podcasts on a Thursday. There was a lot of underwhelming talk about El Neni. You know, it was in your podcast, in lots of others that I listened to today, that was just sort of saying, well, he's just filling a gap. He's a squad player. And I think we're potentially falling into the trap that we fall in with Lacazette, is that people have decided he's no good. People have decided they hate him. People have decided that he's not right for the club. People have decided he's the one we should sell to make some money. Now, and I was just thinking this. I'm not saying that El Neni is the new Messi, but what I was thinking is if El Neni was a new signing and we'd never seen him at Arsenal before, we would all be saying, wow, we found a new Gilberto Silva. You know, we found a new Mikel Arteta. You know, because that player that actually doesn't do too much in the game, but actually just links everything. You know, and Gilberto was fabulous at doing that. Really uninspiring player, you know, in lots of ways. But I thought El Neni, in his 2 games that we've seen him, has come on leaps and bounds from the player that left the club 2 years ago. And I just think
he was a decent player when he left. But he feeds into this idea of, you know, when your maximum performance is a 7 out of 10, even though he is very consistently a 7 out of 10, his maximum performance is a 7 out of 10. The things that he does within that 7, he does all of those things to a high level. He's quite technical. He doesn't lose the ball. He's relatively big. He wins his duels in the air. He makes his passes. He turns the ball over quite well. Is El Neni going to break a game when Arsenal go a goal down, you know, and we need to do something? We need to progress the ball out of midfield? Probably not. I think the stats in that game were like second half, he touched the ball 10 times.
Yeah. But he's a system player and Arteta's a system manager.
He ran for more meters than anyone else, which means he's running into the zones where he requires to be to block the channel for the pass, which makes us harder to break down. He also allowed Xhaka to get forward because he's got a big motor, and Xhaka got further forward, didn't have to rely so much on, or didn't make us feel so fearful that Xhaka's going to get turned. The system, the formation, when you listen to Arteta speak, he doesn't talk about formations, he talks about areas. So even though Tierney's playing on the left side of a back 3, his heat map is further forward. Even though Ainsley Maitland-Niles playing as a wing back, his heat map is actually inside channel, left side of a 3 midfielder. It's about the areas they run and how they get there and when they arrive, and it's all timed. And that's modern football. And I think that's what you were saying, Darren, about, you know, it looks like he's playing Football Manager. I actually think that's the way modern coaches manage now. They don't sit there and say, you're a left wing back, so I have to run you out at left wing back. It's about, are you going to find yourself in that position regularly? On El Neni, my brother actually had him as almost man of the match for the Fulham game. Yeah. I didn't see him providing as much, and I said, look, you know, he doesn't touch the ball enough for me. He doesn't link the play enough for me. I'd rather a more technical passer in there. And Toby was of the opinion that exactly what you said, Darren. He kept the ball. He turned it over. He was very secure in possession. And our shape looked better with him in the team.
Yeah, so I just sort of feel that, you know, we've got to give him a clean slate, you know, start again, think of him as a new player, because he's 2 years older and players develop at different levels, you know, goalkeepers at the age of 26, 27, strikers when they hit 24, 25, people progress at different levels, and he's come back 2 years on and he looks a different player.
And he looks a more secure player than Joe Willock, who had one of the most amount of minutes last season. And despite being more athletic, advancing the ball more, Joe Willock lost the ball in bad areas. You know, El Neni's not going to do that. So if we're looking at squads this year, well, why not keep El Neni? He's not on massive wages. He plugs a hole. He doesn't need to start every week, but everyone's looking at getting him out the door. He won't get us that much money anyway. Maybe the value in him is having him as a squad player for the year.
You stole my point.
Oh, sorry, mate.
All right, Liam, let me give you another question then. Lacazette. I actually even listened to Tony on the Clock End Talk review show today, or come out today. where he was umming and ahhing that Lacazette. I actually heard praise from Tony for Lacazette, which was wonderful. He thought he was one of his 2 or 3 best players in the third or fourth best player in the side. I didn't actually think, apart from the goal, that and I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm a Lacazette fan, but I like the role he plays in Arsenal. I do like the way he comes deep and picks up the ball. I like the way he runs and creates space for people around him. I think he's a decent player, and I can't believe that people always want to sell him and have just written him off. But do you think, and there's lots of podcasts I listen to today where, and I think on yours as well, I think it was your brother Max, we're just saying that Nketiah should take that place. He should be in ahead of him. I think it was your brother Max that said that in the 10 minutes that Nketiah was on, he did better than Lacazette in the 90 minutes. And this sort of just showed to me that Arsenal fans have just, again, just completely written off Lacazette. They've just decided that he's gone, he's no good anymore. How did you think he was at the weekend? Do you think he should start against West Ham on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the role he plays is a really unglamorous one. And I sort of draw comparisons to the team that I coach in some ways, because I've got a striker who's not the most athletic. He doesn't do the fancy things, unlike some of my other players. But he always gets in my squad because he does shit for the team. He just does anything that anyone else doesn't want to do, and he's good at it as well. And it's just such an unglamorous role, and that's why he doesn't really get some of the credit he deserves. I'm not a huge Lacazette fan anyway, but I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for some of the work he really does get through.
Yeah, I agree. Max, anything to add on Lacazette?
Mate, I thought he was absolute crap in the game, other than his tap in. And this isn't coming from a state of someone who is anti-Lacazette, because I've been incredibly pro-Lacazette. In fact, at one point, Toby and I did an entire podcast talking about his ceiling and him being an Alan Shearer type player and bashing into people and hurting people and doing all the dirty work. For me, there's an attitude thing that has crept into his game over the last 2 seasons that I expected not to see in the first game of the season, and I saw it immediately, where he has his cry face and he sits on the floor and he doesn't seem to ride the challenges. There's a technicality that's lacking for him that I think Eddie has a little bit better of a technicality. Was he lazy in the game? No. Did he put himself around? Yes, but some of his touches and some of his passing and some of his link-up play were absolute shit. So,
I think we're going to have to watch this space on Lacazette, because I'm so desperate now for him to do well. Max, I'm with you. I actually didn't think he had a very good game, because I'm now watching everything he does. I agree. I thought his touch was a little off, but I really agree with Liam. He does that stuff that stops him knocking Aubameyang about and stops him, creating space for others to get in behind. He does a lot of the dirty stuff.
Whether it's form or confidence, one of them has hamstrung him from being a good player currently. And I don't think it's effort. Anyone who says that Lacazette goes out there and doesn't put effort in is wrong. He does put effort in, but it's not coming off for him technically. The passing isn't coming off for him. The ball bounces off him. He's always in the right position. He's always working his ass off. I just don't feel that he either wants to be here anymore. And that's got to be the primary factor for me. There has to be an element for him where he's come in, he's had his time at Arsenal, and he now wants to go on for another challenge, because I don't feel, when I look at other players, I don't feel that same input coming from Lacazette. Even in the interview, when I watched him afterwards, they actually asked him the question in the interview about whether or not he was looking for another club. And even you would expect someone who was committed to the club to just shoot that down straight away. And even his response in the interview afterwards was, I have a contract, and as long as I have a contract at Arsenal, I'll try. And I was like, that doesn't sound like something good to me.
And maybe that's just because he knows everyone hates him and he's not feeling the love. Liam?
Yeah, I agree with absolutely everything you said. I think he's quite a limited player, in that he can do some things, and sometimes he does them really well, but a lot of the times is when it's not going from, it just isn't going from, and his touch is off. But I think the one thing he is really good at, and it reminded me when you mentioned Aubameyang, is he does occupy centre-backs really well, and that's something he does a lot better than Nketiah does. even when he's dropping into midfield, part of that is A, making another man, but I think B, it gives the centre-backs a problem and they don't quite know whether to stick or twist, and that gives a space for Aubameyang to get in his positions to score goals. I think that is a large part of why he's still in the team.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I wanted to keep this as short as I can because I just think there's a limit to podcasts. Anything else, guys, that you want to bring up today?
No, up the Arsenal, fuck the Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some comments. Just reading any comments, anything I've missed? I've probably missed lots. I know we've had some West Ham fans listening because they're going to stuff us apparently on Saturday, according to Mark. He says we're deluded. That's also Mark. Michael Burke, who seems to have really got the hump of us. Guna Tez is obviously listening. Mr. Arsenal podcast. Thanks for you guys. Smithy78 just says, do you think we're going to see Partey or Aour come in this summer? I don't want to talk these transfers. Who knows? Until the deal's done, until they're wearing an Arsenal shirt, signing a paper, who cares? Let's just not get into that speculation. That's about it. I've got one appeal.
Can I just respond to Dan Potts there? Dan Potts, Potsy preview, same old Arsenal Dan. The nickname for him is the Pod Hawk because he's on every podcast and he's having a pop at me there. Max, you on every podcast? Are you taking the mickey out of me?
Actually, Dan, I was actually told after last week's podcast, and you got to remember, I've done over 100 of these. I'm not saying I'm any good, but I certainly am I got my own opinion, and I got some advice that I should listen to yours because you are the best one out there. And who said that? Max. So he obviously loves you.
My boy Potsy.
He obviously loves you. I've got a little appeal if I can. I think we're playing after West Ham. We're playing Sheffield United. Is that the next game?
Liverpool, isn't
is it Liverpool?
Maybe Leicester. Maybe Leicester in the cup.
I'm talking about the next preview because the Leicester's the midweek game. Because we had a Fulham fan on for the first game, we had a West Ham fan on today, and I was looking ahead thinking, I don't know any Sheffield United fans. I don't know any.
I think Dan, if he's listening, I'm quite sure he had a Sheffield United fan on his preview last year, so I'll give him a tinkle.
Excellent,
and see if he can sort us out.
I think it's just a real nice thing to get a view from the other club before we play them. So that'd be nice to keep that going. I'm sure I'll be fine with Liverpool because I'm married to a Scouser, so I've just got to think of one of those that's not going to irritate me too much. Can't think of one.
just had a check. Yeah, we've got Liverpool on the Monday night on the 28th, and then we've got Sheffield United. Yeah, the week after Liverpool.
Okay, yeah, because that's the first game where they may let fans in. Hopefully, I'm in the ballot. Let's see if I get lucky. All right, guys. Look, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us, Liam, Max. You can catch Liam at Gronig Guna. Is that right? Gronig Guna.
Yeah, it's the Dutch way of pronouncing it I did last time. Gron in Guna.
In Guna. You can get Liam there, and Max. Obviously, it's on the screen there. Aspros rant. Really good show today, Max, as well. Really enjoyed it. I like the fact it was 40 minutes as well. I really think that's a nice little preview show, and we've just done about an hour and a half, so fuck that one up. I'm Darren. You can catch me on Twitter at DeliGuna, and thanks for listening, and make sure you catch the Clock and Talk review show from the Fulham game. Really good. They do their season-long predictions. No spoiler alerts, but there's some weird predictions, really worth listening to. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you all at the same time next week.